Hello students. After studying this module, you shall be able to know the concepts of acculturation, learn the historical development of the concept, and identify models of acculturation. Meaning and nature of acculturation. Acculturation is a dual process of psychological and cultural change that occurs when an ethnic group settles with non-ethnic group for some period of time. At an individual level, this process highlights psychological change. Since an individual in new contexts, as a result of contact, exhibit behavioral and attitudinal change within oneself. It is a form of re-socialization whereby immigrants are exposed to new ways of thinking and acting, new beliefs, values, attitudes, etc. At a group level, it is a cultural change. Since the group is exposed to new customs, values, associations, and institutions, the group acquires and associates oneself with the culture of another group. Generally speaking, the kind of cultural change will impact both parties, natives and inhabitants, those who were already settled in context, and the second are the migrants who were motivated to be settled in the new context. This form of cultural change is relatively for a long term. It is a process of change that occurs when individuals with different culture interact with other and share common geographical space. Indeed, the process of acculturation had instilled interest in various social scientists, including sociologists, anthropologists, and psychologists especially. Thus, various definitions have been formulated by various theorists from across disciplines to highlight the meaning of this construct. Few definitions that formulate acculturation in timeline are: acculturation comprehends those phenomena which result when groups of individuals having different cultures come into the continuous first-hand contact with subsequent changes in the original culture patterns of either or both groups. Social Science Research, Cownell, 1957, defined acculturation is culture change initiated by the conjunction of two or more autonomous cultural systems. Acculturative change may be the consequence of direct cultural transmission. It may be derived from non-cultural causes such as ecological or demographic modification induced by an impinging culture. It may be delayed, as with internal adjustments following upon the acceptance of alien traits or patterns, or it may be a reactive adaptation of transitional modes of life. These two formulations bring out important points into the discussion. A. The culture change may be caused due to direct or indirect contact between two cultures. And B. The change may occur in two intensity delayed, slowly and steadily over the years, and reactive means rate of change and adaptation within the other culture is fast. Gordon in 1964 defined acculturation as the adoption of the cultural norms and behavioral patterns of the majority group, that is, the core group. Gans in 1999 defined acculturation as the newcomer's adoption of the culture, that is, the behavior patterns or practices, values, rules, symbols, and so forth of the host society, or rather an overly homogenized and reified conception. Definitions proposed by Gans in 1999 and Gordon in 1964 emphasize the unidirectional model of cultural change, whereby the immigrants adopt the culture of migrated society, maybe forcefully or voluntarily, to create uniformity in the society. Indeed, the first two definitions, especially the first one, emphasizes that culture change is bidirectional process. Organista, Marin, and Chun in 2010 attempted to propose a holistic definition of the term acculturation. They defined acculturation as a dynamic and multidimensional process of adaptation that occurs when distinct cultures come into sustained contact. It involves different degrees and instances of cultural learning and maintenance that are contingent upon individual, group, and environmental factors. They further clarified that acculturation is a dynamic because it is a continuous and fluctuating process, and it is multidimensional because it transpires across numerous indices of psychosocial functioning and can result in multiple adaptation outcomes. Finally, few features we derive from the above definitions about the term acculturation are: it is a form of cultural change that comes as a result of group contact. It is a bidirectional process whereby both the cultures come in contact, affects each other. Change is manifested through espousal of beliefs, values, or norms. It seems to be a long-term and continuous process. It is a multidimensional process of personal development. Individuals undergoing acculturation process may acquire different strategies to adapt in other cultures. Related terms: cultural assimilation, cultural integration, and culture incorporation. These terms had been synonymously used in place of acculturation by sociologists and anthropologists. However, assimilation, integration, and incorporation are terms that emphasize the ethnic group becomes part of formal and non-formal ethnic associations of the host societies in non-ethnic group. Thus, these terms are used for culture change of an ethnic group in new culture. In contrast, acculturation is observed to be seen as a process of culture change at an individual level. Thus, the major difference between acculturation and cultural assimilation, cultural integration, and cultural incorporation is the latter terms are used to refer to a group process, while acculturation refers to an individual process. The term incorporation highlights the participation of an individual in society vis-a-vis right to vote, cultural activities, meetings, and being part of associations. This incorporation reflects civic incorporation of the individuals. The term assimilation is often used by sociologists. There are different forms of assimilation advocated by sociologists. Milton in 1964 proposed the term of structural assimilation, whereby stress was maintained on integrating the immigrants structurally, that is, physically in primary groups like associations, clubs, and society, etc. Fournier in 1999 offered an alternative expression for cultural change as segmented assimilation. Segmented assimilation is the process of assimilation into a particular social segment ranging from the middle to the lower classes. He clarified segmented assimilation does not emphasize complete internalization of values, beliefs, and attitudes of dominant group. Rather, significantly there is the blend of two cultures that creates another form of cultures within the immigrants. One of the groundbreaking research that throws light on the process of creation of new culture was done by Thomas and Zielinski in 1918 on Polish Americans. Historical background. In an early development of the work in acculturation, politicians and social scientists enshrined the term e pluribus unum, that is, out of many, one. It was emphasized that politicians and social scientists expected immigrants to subdue their values, beliefs, and lifestyle and become as one from the host society. One can trace back the research on acculturation during the late 18th centuries, for instance, in writings of Holmes, Boas, Magee. However, they use different names to explain this phenomenon. For instance, Maggie in 1998 used piratical acculturation and amicable acculturation to explain transfer of customs from lower grade to higher grade. Later works in 19th century, like Margaret Mead in 1932 wrote, "The changing culture of an Indian tribe." Monica Hunter Wilson in 1936 worked on reaction to conquest, describing repercussions of contacts among the Pondo and the other natives of South Africa. Lauwys in 1935 did an intensive study of Crow Indian culture of the Buffalo period, emphasized the processes of acculturation. Few other studies include Heskowitz in 1927, Lesser in 1933, Redfield in 1929, Shapira in 1934, and Spear in 1935 showed significance of acculturation. However, the work done in 18th and 19th century was really limited, and psychologists neglected the work on acculturation till the 20th century. Acculturation context. Studies have been done to find out the factors that facilitate the process of acculturation. Berry, Portinga, Segal, and Dayson in 2002 highlighted 5 aspects of acculturation contexts that facilitate the process of acculturation. 2 original cultures, A and B, the 2 ethnocultural groups, A and B, and the nature of their contact and interactions. 2 cultures, A and B, in which A refers to the original culture and B refers to the culture in which one plans to settle. As both come in contact, especially the migrant from A culture, lot of transformation, substitution, and reformation of its own culture may happen. Studies indicate that there is a continuum of change happening. It is rarely seen that there is no change or complete transformation of culture. Therefore, an ethnocultural group is created which the blend of A, prior culture, and B, posterior culture. It may refer to A and B. Finally, the nature of their contact and interactions may have following factors that will affect culturation. Degree of voluntariness. If the migrants have voluntarily wished to be a part of the culture, this form of motive is a positive motive. The migrants are pulled towards that culture. In such cases, acculturation may be less stressful and the positive strategies may be acquired by the migrant. Contrarily, if the migrants were pushed towards a particular culture, they have negative motives against the culture. They may not acculturate themselves to the culture. The context in which migrants plans to settle will also affect the acculturation process. In plural society, acculturation process happens far better than the society which believes in unicultural ideology. In fact, an individual undergoing acculturation process passes through 4 stages before integrating oneself in the new society or culture. The first stages is of the initial enthusiasm, which involves eagerness, anxiety about the future, and feeling of optimism for being in a new country with new opportunities. Second stages consist of the culture shock, which the newcomers have to face due to a total change in the surroundings. In this stage, the newcomers may experience confusion, misunderstandings, feel depressed or isolated. All this happens due to a complete shift of situations and conditions for the newcomers. After surpassing the second stage successfully, then comes the third stages, which is recovery. That involves the newcomers to have a better approach towards situations and feel less anxious. The final stage thereafter comprises of integration, whereby the newcomers are able to associate themselves well with the newfound place and culture. They are able to value both old and the new cultures. The psychological distress and anxiety about adjusting in a new surrounding gets eliminated, and the people settle in their new habitat with their emotional equilibrium and trust restored. Nature of group contact. Berry in 2004 had summarized the nature of group contact in a framework whereby he compared group contact in ethnic relations and acculturation. According to Berry, the process of group contact in acculturation and ethnic relations begin with similar political, historical, and economic context. However, there are differences in the nature of group contact in acculturation as compared to ethnic relations. Individuals undergoing acculturation formulate their attitude by either shedding or learning the cultural ethos of the previous or present culture, respectively. As a result, changes in behavioral repertoire are observed, and individuals either identify with both or any one culture strongly. Thus, it depends on the level of identifications with both or either one of the cultures that the individual will exhibit stress or harmony. In contrast, nature of group relations emphasizes the stereotypes, the prejudice, and the attitude change that the groups formulates for the other group. The level of discrimination and security that individual feels for the other culture will guide the outcome. Interestingly, the outcome of the acculturations and the ethnic relations are similar, as the individual undergoing acculturation or groups encountering ethnic contact either show harmony or exhibit stress in their relations. Within the acculturation process, the individuals observe models of acculturation. Organista, Marin, and Chun in 2010 had proposed few models of acculturation. These models draw attention to the nature of acculturation. These models describe processes that an individual and a group as a whole may undergo during acculturation. Unidirectional model of acculturation. It proposes that the group of people settled in other culture move away from their origin towards the group of community that is dominant at that time. They attempt to mimic the other culture. Chun, Ball, Organista, and Marin in 2003 had relegated these cultural changes at one direction and observed some retention of original aspect of culture is maintained. Ethnogenesis. The process of integrating oneself in other culture and forming one's own subculture by blending the values, beliefs, or original culture from where they came from and majority group in which they are living presently is called ethnogenesis. The term ethnogenesis means genesis, that is origin of the new, ethos, that is culture. This model shares that immigrants often show such tendencies of integrating the styles of two cultures so that they can identify with both groups. Fournier in 1999 observed that Jamaican immigrants in United States manifested a blend in perceiving gender role expectations, as Jamaican men perceived that women are responsible for home duties, and in United States, no such expectations are perceived by the men. The blend of two styles are maintained, which shows the genesis of the new style in itself. An amalgamation of two styles gives birth to the third culture in Jamaican immigrants in United States. Emphasis on individual. One of the models emphasizes that the individual's response towards each culture will impact the acculturation process of the immigrants. Berry in 2003 had proposed a comprehensive framework to explain the individual's reaction towards maintaining one's own culture and acquiring the attitude of other culture can lead to four kinds of responses: assimilation, marginalization, integration, and separation. The following strategies will be discussed in detail in the next topic of acculturative stress and behavioral strategies. The role of social context. Rambert and Portis in 2001 suggested a different model which emphasized the social context in which the immigrants are migrating plays a significant role in acculturation process. Especially in context of second generation, few factors like human capital, level of discrimination, civic incorporation of their parents plays an important role. Portis in 2001 emphasized that there are two possible outcomes. If context in which the immigration happens is rated positively, then it results in biculturalism. On the contrary, negative effect of the social context in which the first generation is living might result in downwards assimilation. Biculturalism. It is the positive outcome of the acculturation. This model emphasizes immigrants acquire knowledge of two cultures and identify, incorporate, and attain proficiency in language, customs, and beliefs of both cultures. The process of adapting with two cultures is called biculturalism. Few studies that paid special attention on the process of biculturalism are by Beriel and Chun in 1980, Lem from Boyce, Coleman and Jerton in 1999, Chazon-Zing and Curtinis in 1980. Few characteristics noticeable in bicultural individuals are: Hong et al. In 2000 observed bicultural individuals gain proficiency in both the languages. They exhibit flexible cognitive style as they can switch from one cultural framework to another. Lemfer-Boyce et al. In 1993 observed that bicultural individuals showed better psychological well-being than monoculture individuals. They attain stable sense of identity and show positive effect for both the cultures. Bicultural individuals acquire physical and mental health and outperform academically and vocationally better in comparison to the monoculture peers. Enculturation. Soldier in 1985 observed phenomena of enculturation, especially with the third generation of the immigrants. He stated, individuals who endeavor to learn or affirm their culture of origin are often described as undergoing a process of enculturation. Such phenomena was noticed within the third generation of immigrants population. In a research study with Irish Americans and Italian Americans, the third generation as compared to the first generation exhibited greater sense of belonging towards their original culture rather than the migrated cultures. Indeed, the level of change was observed to be at a superficial level. Eating, dressing, and lifestyle changes, kind of media they prefer, script they follow, and so on. However, studies indicated that the level of change and resurgence for one's own original culture is much deeper than observed. Zimmerman et al. In 1996 did a research study on Americans, Indians, in which they measured the sense of pride and urge to gain knowledge about one's own culture and tradition. The American Indians showed high level of involvement in their traditions like fasting, prayers, etc., customs, and exhibited greater sense of pride for their original culture. Level of acculturation. Berry in 2004 shared that there are two processes that is inherent in the process of acculturation. Cultural shedding is the process of gradual elimination of acquired values and customs. Cultural learning is the process in which individual undergoes acculturation, acquires new symbols and signs of migrated culture. However, no individual can totally be acculturated or unculturated. There is a continuum of acculturation. This brings rise to the concept of level of culturation. Marin in 1992 proposed three different levels of acculturation. As per the given figure, three levels of acculturations include superficial level, intermediate level, and basic level in hierarchy in an descending order. These levels are differentiated on the basis of the range of the level of significance that an individual owes to symbols of the culture. The lowest level of personal significant symbols will be easily shed, while the strongest symbols will be difficult to remove in the mindset and behavior of the individuals undergoing acculturation. These three different levels of acculturation are seen as a result of interaction of various factors like length of exposure and the personal significance of the behaviors or values. Assessing acculturation. Researchers have developed various tools, instruments, and designs to assess the level of acculturation. Organista et al. In 2010 reported that most studies rely on self-report paper-pencil instruments on assessing the levels of acculturation. To name the few, bidimensional acculturation scale for Hispanics, African American acculturation scale. The questions in the instruments largely include the report on their preference, values, ethnicity, languages, beliefs, and value systems. However, the outcomes of these studies using different measuring instruments in the same cultures show variations in their results. These researchers suggested the variations in outcome were due to the kinds of tools used to measure the levels of acculturations. Few limitations observed within the psychological research while studying acculturations. Within last decades of studies on acculturation, psychologists had followed a static approach to understand intergroup relations. There had been limited studies that inquire the motivations of an individual who planned to acculturate. According to Padilla and Perez in 2003, this is imperative to understand the cause and motivation behind acculturation, as this will impact the social cognition of the individuals undergoing acculturation. Secondly, the theories of acculturation had been generalized across the individuals without analyzing even the nature of group, race, status, and culture they had come from. In thrust, there had been wrong notion carried across the mindset of the researchers about the process of acculturation as being uniform in nature. The scales developed cover specific domains of behavior. Concluding comments. There is limited research done in the area of acculturation. Since this is an era of globalization, cultural contact is a natural part of our lifestyle. Largely, all societies had become a melting point, and many cultures coexist, live together, and form the development niche for the generations to come. With times, the concept of acculturation had broadened to those people who are sojourns like education, tourism, jobs, business, etc. to other countries and migrate for a small period of time. Nevertheless, the research done in this field is not enough, and the methodologies to inquire such a sensitive issue need to be developed by societal scientists. Summary. The process of acculturation has instilled interest in sociologists, anthropologists, and especially psychologists. There are 4 stages of acculturation: initial enthusiasm, cultural shock, recovery, and integration. No individual can totally be acculturated or unacculturated. There is a continuum of acculturation which brings rise to the concept of level of acculturation. The models of acculturation draw attention to its nature. These models describe processes that an individual and a group as a whole may undergo during acculturation. Marin proposed 3 different levels of acculturation, which include superficial level, intermediate level, and basic level in hierarchy in a descending order. Researchers have developed various tools, instruments, and designs to assess the level of acculturation. The theoretical and methodological issues around acculturation include at least 3 points. Motivation of individual who decides to acculturate is not given due consideration while doing research. Secondly, acculturation is assumed to be a uniform process. And finally, assessment procedures used self-inventory that were unidimensional in nature. The inventories were not using each aspect of culture change. Therefore, the researchers found variations in the outcomes of their research within the same cultures.